Welcome to HRAM 480, Lesson 5, Selection Interviewing. We discussed last time about the selection activities beyond interviewing, that other things you could do to predict and or measure or assess knowledge, skills, and abilities of the individuals. Predominantly, we talked about knowledge tests, trainability tests, and sample-based tests, and so on. Today, we will be talking about the interview itself, how you can design an effective interviewing that it is free from the biases that are so much prevalent in interviewing process. Learning outcomes are distinguished between unstructured, semi-structured, and structured interviews. We will also discuss problems with unstructured interviews, advantages of structured interviews, how to construct structured interviews, and learn techniques involved in managerial interviewing. As I mentioned, there are three types of interviewing. There's structured interviews, unstructured interviews, and semi-structured interviews. Structured interviews are basically in this format. A person looks for the job description, and picks up a few questions, and that they are job related, and creates some answer guides, normally in the form of 3 to 5 answers per question, and rates the answers. So you have an answer key that helps you to see objectively measure how people answered a given question. And at the end, you add up the scores, and whoever candidates has the highest acceptable scores will be the highest selection in terms of interview responses. You have to check other things too. But so you are in this system, you have the same questions asked from every candidate, you rate their answers, and compile your scoring to find out who are the best scorers in terms of interview. In unstructured interviews, the interviewer probably has a few questions in mind, but really not necessarily have really sat down and look at the job analysis and job description and found some sort of questions that are pertinent to the job, and has really developed some answer key for the questions. So really it's an ad hoc type in interviewing. Just these people think that sometimes that because they have done so many interviews that they don't need to prepare for it as much as you would do in a structured interview. So they go to the situations, and depends on the situation, and an interview can go either way. Semi-structures interviews are very similar to structure in that you have the selected questions, but also you allow to have follow-up questions if you need to from each candidate. Let's look at the problems with unstructured interviews, or ad hoc interviews as it's called. It's intuitive because you haven't really written questions. you're feeling that you might have questions that you're going to ask, depends on the candidate in the situation. And sometimes some questions come up when we run out of really in a question, or things don't cross our mind. We just ask questions that they're intuitive, not really related to the position itself. You also end up asking close-ended questions. Close-ended questions, I am sure you have an answer for it, what they are, but really those are questions that lead to one yes or no, or can or cannot, would or would not type things. It doesn't really give any more detailed information about a candidate's position about the question. For example, if I ask someone, are you a team player? Of course, they're not going to say I am not. They're going to say, yes, I am. And that doesn't mean that. What does it mean to be a team player? But I could ask that, have you resolved any team challenge in your past experience? Then I would know if this person really is a team player. Not only that, but also how can address the problems that happen in team environment. So I really get into more in depth about understanding person's ability about team playing. Close-ended questions only could be used for verification. If I wanted to know, if somebody said in their resume they had 5 years of experience, I could ask, how many years of experience do you have? And they would say 5, that I verify my 5 that is correct in the resume or application, and so on. Really, for that purpose, you can ask close-ended questions, but any questions that could be answered yes I would, no I wouldn't, or anything like that should be avoided. So in your exercises that you have for interview, developing interview questions, you need to ask the question and answer it yourself to see if you can answer it with yes and no, and or one word or the other. So that would be a close-ended question. We try to avoid it because that really doesn't give us anything more about the candidate. Leading questions are very common. People like to brag about their companies, how they do things, and as a result of that, they start a sentence with a leading questions and ask candidates about what qualities they would bring. Of course, that would lead the person to be in the direction of what you have already told them. For example, if I said to a person that we have a fast-paced environment or fast-paced kitchen, what qualities do you bring if I hire you? Of course, you already gave them to them the idea that, fast pace is going to be one of them. So anytime you bring issues that helps people to answer in one way or another that you value or your company values, then that's a leading question. We are totally a team company. How do you work in a team environment? Of course, I already said that team working is important for me. And instead of asking or saying that, leading the candidate, we say, if I hire you, what qualities would you bring? If they say a team player, and that's important for you, you want to hear as one of the answers, then let the candidate bring it. So for you to lead them, what is important for you is the service to understanding the true person. And also, when you are not prepared, sometimes you run into illegal questions that we discussed this last time, questions about somebody's political situation or economic situation and so on, that because you don't have any questions in front of you and you want to ask something. So these are good reasons to say that we need to avoid unstructured or ad hoc interviews. Of course, there's many disadvantages, though some people say that it provides flexibility, but it lacks focus, it lacks continuity and consistency, because you're not asking the same questions from everybody. It depends on the situation, which may, of course, lead to an interview or sometimes frustration. And they don't have very strong predictive power in terms of validity. So we recommend that people use as much as possible structured interviews because they are job related. You get the questions right from the job descriptions. You focus on specific behaviors and that's needed for the job, or you focus on specifications required for the job, and those are listed in somebody's job description, so I know what kind of characteristics or knowledge and abilities and behaviors I'm looking for. Then I would make my questions based on that. They always ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions, as we said, that gives the opportunity for candidate to do most of the talking, to reveal their true characteristics and specifications. They are a scientifically valid and reliable and predictive way of measuring somebody's qualifications. Of course, disadvantage is that structured interviews take more time, and you have to have expertise how to develop those questions and answers for those questions, and of course rating system. Normally there are three types of structured interviews: situational interviews, pattern behavior description interviews, which also is known as experience-based or behavioral questions, and multimodal interviews, which combines the first two, past experience or experience behavior based questions with situational questions. Well, let me go back in here to describe a little bit more what situational interviews are. Situational interviews basically say that you put a candidate in a given hypothetical situation and ask them how would they behave in that situation. Pattern behavior description interviews or behavior-based experience interviews is based on past behavior, and basically the assumption here is that if somebody behaved in a certain way in the past, more likely they would continue to behave in the future. So you're predicting future performance based on the past performance. And multimodal is the combination of the two. So situational interviews, as we said, that it's predicting how a candidate would behave in a given hypothetical situation. You can come up with several questions for each position that you're asking or you're interviewing for. I just put one example for a server. The guests are slow in eating their appetizers. Their entrees are ready and up. How would you handle this situation? Of course, you already have your three answers. The best answer that is suitable for your company is going to get 3 points. The medium is going to get 2 points, and the not relevant answer is going to get 1 point. Try to answer this question on your own. See what you like. I could ask questions like from a host and hostess, uh, for example. On a busy Saturday night, a party of 10 arrives. Your records show no reservation for the party, but they claimed that they had made reservations. What do you do? Here, the answers vary from some people saying that, well, they will just say that, well, we don't have any reservations for you. I'm so sorry. We are have a busy night. Some people say I will talk to my manager and see what he or she suggests. Or some people say that I will never falsify the guest and I'll make sure that apologize that somehow their reservation didn't get to our books. We will follow up on that. We will take him, put him in a bar situation, and buy him a drink, and we tell him we will accommodate you as soon as any table opens up. So this is, these are the kind of responses that you might hear from people. It's up to your establishment and yourself to see what is the best answer you're looking for. For example, you could ask from food and beverage manager, one of your bartenders does not close the bar properly at his night shift. This creates complaints by others. How do you handle the situation? Again, I have heard a range of answers for these kind of questions. You can think of those kind of questions. What is the best way? We will later on learn about 4 steps of coaching. Probably I'd like to hear something like that a person would coach the manager, the food and beverage manager, to take care of the situation. Past behavior, basically, or experience-based interview questions are again based on past experience. In here, the past tense is most important. You're asking about past experience and see how they behaved. Of course, these are questions that you ask people that they had some experience in that area. For example, tell me about when you could not get along with a supervisor. What did you do about it? I have heard many examples from this, as some people say that they would talk to coworkers, and or some people might say they directly talk to the manager. Some people say that I'll go over the manager and talk to his supervisor. There are a range of answers. Of course, you got to know and think about that what is the best answer for you, that you want to be prepared, and how you have handled these situations in the past. Probably one of the good answers might be that you really talk to the manager and tell him that you have thought about this very much, so you want to have the best relationships, but you probably don't know what has been the cause of the disagreements, and I would like you to clarify, and I would like to resolve that so we can move forward and be satisfied. So those are the, however you want to answer, but there's ways that you need to prepare for those kind of questions. And of course, they really drill down you a lot in these situations, so be really prepared. For example, from a catering manager, I might ask, tell me about the most difficult party you have had within the last year. What actions did you take to make the customer happy? Again, here, an experienced manager should be able to give me an answer to wow me that really the person did take an amazing or exciting something that resolved the issue. Or you could ask from a manager a time you reached your peak experience or peak performance. What was it? So there is a range of things people can answer this. I have seen a lot of blank faces. that people cannot tell about their performances. We all have in our lives some performances that we are proud of. It doesn't have to be work related. If it is, that's fine too. But it's not. You have had community service activities, you have helped somebody in life, you have help a friend, or whatever that made you to be a proud human being. Those are the things that the interviewers are looking for, and that could be again job related or not job related, but never stay quiet and not to have to think about too much. That you should be prepared to have examples of your peak performances. I could ask a chef a time when your sense of humor helped you was, because we know chefs are sometimes uptight, so we want to know if the chef has really a sense of humor, can emotionally connect to other people. So you guys should be able to, we all have to in the interview situation to say that we have a little sense of humor. By the way, we're in hospitality industry, so we should be able to give a couple of examples that they are really funny, and you made a bad situation to be a funny situation. Think about some of those and have those prepared. I could ask a boss person, for example, what did irritate you the most at your last job? This would be very interesting. I asked this question from somebody. If you were working in a Holiday Inn, what would irritate you the most? And somebody answered, kids irritate me the most. And that's really funny. That company really sells based on the kids and the family. So some of the things that in the situation we have to make sure that we turn the negative to positive. You probably would say that people who do not follow up with the standards of the company and they shortcut, for example, their procedures irritate me because that makes the job tougher for everybody else. That kind of ability to turn something negative to something positive. You can ask an accountant, for example, tell me about the last time you broke the rules. What were the circumstances? And you can, by the way, ask anybody this kind of questions, because we all in life have broken the rules, but we don't want to be breaking the rules that they're illegal or very offensive and so on. But we have always cut corners to satisfy people. Again, here you need to make sure that you turn this around and make a positive statements. For example, for a server might say that, well, we were supposed to serve one basket of bread per table, but when I see that people have really enjoyed their breads and butters and so on, I try to bring a second just to please them. It's, yes, you're going against the rule, but you're really not doing it for yourself. You're helping the others. So any things like that so would be a creative way of answering the questions. This is the situational, the multimodal interviewing. In this, you first ask the past behavior, and if a person says that I didn't have that kind of experience, then you would turn it to situational, saying that how would you do it? Tell me, for example, about last time you had missed your work. What did you do? The answer is I never missed my job. And the interviewer says, what would you do if you have to miss your work? So here again, range of answers are there that you could think about. Another very popular one is that has a good follow-up is that what qualities would you bring if I hire you? So you answer some sort of a quality that you will bring. an interviewer would follow up to say that, could you provide an example? This is happening a lot right now, and anytime you say that you are friendly, they would tell you, well, give me an example. Or you are a conscientious person, give me an example. So anything you talk about yourself, then you have to be prepared to support it with a real example. So it's not just saying that I am this, I am that is not enough. So please be prepared for that, because the interviewers are really seriously looking to see what behaviors you have had in the past. So how do you develop structure interviews? As we talked about, you refer to the job description and make specific questions for the position. Develop possible answer for all your questions, and of course criteria for answers. You rate your answers for importance, scoring key, that's what you need to develop. Ask same questions from all applicants, evaluate and determine the total scores. The systematic approach focuses on the same relevant characteristics and behaviors and reduce the possibility of interview or bias. Sometimes when you are having selection activities for people such as managers and executives and so on, probably some sort of a activities beyond interview are good to do, and back it up. In basket tests, as I talked previously, is a good example that you basically give several scenarios to a person and kind of observe that how they handle those scenarios, how they make decisions, what the skills they use to solve the issues. For example, one of the problems in the basket could be you had a return check from the bank yesterday. You had a bartender fighting with another bartender. You had a customer complain that whatever wasn't done right, and so on. So you list those things, and you want to know this manager how he or she would prioritize the issues and how would handle each one of those situations. Of course, in here, having a fight is a security issue, needs to be addressed first, and the bank can wait. But those are the things that you need, and you want to know how the person is going to resolve the issue of the fight between two bartenders. Just an example. You saw again the videotape previously in the selection process. Leaderless group discussions is another form. You basically bring group of people together and you give them a scenario and let them discuss that scenario. It's provoking, thought-provoking scenario. You want to see people taking sides. You want to see people taking leadership in discussing and how they engage. What are their manners in discussions? If somebody who's just sitting and watching for the others and not putting in any sense in the discussions, then that person is not capable of solving problems for the position. So that is really, you probably could see some examples of that in the YouTube if you have time to do a Google search, and you'll see some examples of leaderless group discussions. Role plays, games, business games also are really important. You want people, you give them some roles. For example, a service person serving a situation, or you could do have role plays that how a person resolves a conflict, how a person can, for example, discipline an employee, and so on, and you observe their knowledge and skills and abilities and how they handle those situations. So that brings us to a conclusion with respect to selection. Selection again is in activities, including interview or sample-based tests, and so on, and activities that basically reveals to you the knowledge and skills and abilities for the position. So if you can, always be creative. Don't suffice to just interview. Interviews can be biased because of different reasons, which we will discuss later and in the next session. But these are the things that people can especially and specifically demonstrate. So those activities are more or less biased and more important. Thanks again. Have a great day. We'll see you for lesson 6.